They're not even pretending as if they want to find common ground. The only path forward at this moment is for us to have a bipartisan conversation as to a spending bill that would actually meet the needs of the American people. And we were on track to have that conversation in the White House until Donald Trump and the Republicans backed out. They're running scared. They have no defensible position. And that's why, unfortunately, they're marching us to a government shutdown.
By the way, speaking of indefensible issues, I saw a story last week about this big, beautiful bill. They call it, I call it the biggest budget-busting bill in American history. But it's, it doesn't flow as easy as big, beautiful bill. But it is far more accurate, but it really underwater. Republicans are scared how unpopular that is. The president even said he's going to stop calling it big, beautiful bill because it's so unpopular. And he came there talking about an indefensible position Republicans have. Now, I don't know if this is accurate or not, but I read that Donald Trump canceled the meeting because the speaker and the Senate Majority Leader, John and Mike Johnson, told him not to take the meeting. Is that correct? Have you heard that?
Yeah, there have been some back and forth about this meeting or not. Republicans think they can win the political, conversation about a possible shutdown, which defies normally how that works. When the Republicans have the presidency, both houses of Congress. Your power, you tend to get blamed. But certainly, that meeting was on track until Trump blew it up with that Truth Social post the other day. But here's a tell in terms of that bill, Joe, also, which is, of course, shaping the backdrop to a lot of these conversations. President Trump is known for his first term, obviously, crisscrossing the country, barnstorming in support of his stuff. He has not taken not one domestic trip in support of this bill. Not one.
It cuts health care. It gives billionaires the biggest tax cut ever. It gives multinational corporations the biggest tax cut ever. It gives monopolists the biggest tax cut ever. And it raises the federal debt the most ever. Who would want to go out and campaign for that?
And that's why the White House told members of Congress, don't hold town halls either, because they were seeing those events where lawmakers would get yelled at by their constituents because of all the things you just said.
But why, Mike, do you pass such a horrible bill? Politically, and now they're trying to say, hey, we're going to call this a working class bill. No. You gave Larry Ellison, you gave Elon Musk, you gave Mark Zuckerberg, you gave all of these gazillionaires, you gave them all tax cuts, and you gave multinational corporations tax cuts, and you gave people that run monopolies in Silicon Valley tax cuts, and you stiffed working class, middle class Americans.
Well, the answer to your question was answered in the prior segment by Carlos, who was defeated in his election rebid. It's fear of primary opponents, fear of Donald Trump. Republicans will march lockstep under Donald Trump because they are afraid of him. And they will march lockstep under him until the impact of what you just referred to, cuts in Medicare, Medicaid, cuts, huge increases in Obamacare bills, things like that affect ordinary people and their health. Mike,
This is LG again. See, now you see the whole story. All those prejudiced white people was out there, the prejudiced blacks, the prejudiced Mexicans, the prejudiced Native Americans that supported a tyrant. I look at the news that there is C-SPAN and C-SPAN 2 that shows you what's going on. And the whole thing about it, they didn't care nothing about that. All they care about was money and power, and you're going to put the Democrats, you're going to punish the Democrats, and you're going to punish black and brown people. Now you see what you did. When your insurance rate for health insurance tripled, when all the subsidies that Obama and Biden gave you, when they all disappear at the end of the year, I don't want to hear no crying. I don't want to hear no moaning. That's God's wrath coming down on you for being so evil. That you don't care nothing about your brother and your sister that's less fortunate. Shame on you. It's in God's hands now.
Sum it all up by saying it's fear of the postal service that's going to be the biggest issue. What comes in the mail? The increase in bills, the increase in auto insurance, the increase in life insurance, the increase in electric bills, which are going to be astronomical in another 5 or 6 months. It's how people live. And when they can't pay their bills, they're going to take it out on someone, and that someone's going to be the Republican Party.
I think healthcare is going to continue to grow as a massive issue. I mean, people's insurance rates go up. The number of denied requests continue to go up. I think it's going to be a huge issue.
Well, right now, the White House is telling federal agencies to prepare for another possible round of mass firings unless Congress can pass a measure by the end of Tuesday, which is when government funding is set to expire. As we said, one point of contention dividing the two parties is funding for health care. For more on that, let's bring in former Treasury official and Morning Joe economic analyst, Steve Ratner. And Steve, your first chart takes us through projections on how many Americans could lose their health insurance from the proposed budget cuts.
7 million Americans voted for the devil. Listen to what this man said.
Issue in this shutdown, and for good reason, as I'm going to show you. You haven't heard Republicans say lately, let's repeal Obamacare. Have you? I don't think I haven't heard. You probably haven't heard, because it's not popular to say that. So they've been doing it surreptitiously, piece by piece. They are dismantling Obamacare, and that is what the Democrats are fighting for in this go-round. So let's take a look at the numbers. Obamacare started right about in here, and with about 35 million Americans uninsured at the time. We brought it all the way down here to 25 million. In other words, 20 million Americans got insurance, largely, if not entirely, because of Obamacare. And now a combination of changes is going to bring that back up here. And it's going to take away 70% of the people who got health insurance under Obamacare are going to lose it, both because of what's in the big, beautiful bill and because of what's on the table right now, which I'm going to explain. And you can see it breaks down to a few pieces. These are the changes made in the big, beautiful bill. That's 10 million of this 14. And now what's on the table for this shutdown would be 4.2 million more people losing their health insurance if the Republicans get their way. I'm not going to go through this whole chart, but the point of it is to basically say they did it a whole bunch of different ways, very nerdy, very in the weeds, things people couldn't really get angry about because they don't really, frankly, understand most of them. You know, something like a work requirement, which is the biggest of it. You may say, sure, people should work to get Medicaid. But the fact is, many people who qualify for the exemption from work don't know how to fill out the forms, don't know how to do it. And so a quarter of those 14 million people would be people who lose it because they don't know how to take advantage of their exemption from the work requirement.
So Steve, as we move to your second chart, there are these tax credits, enhanced tax credits that boost coverage that are set to expire at the end of the year. What impact will that have?
Yeah, so that's what's on the table. The Democrats have a long wish list, but when you talk to them privately, what it comes down to for the moment, they're not going to get the big, beautiful bill unwound. What it comes down for the moment is another provision set to expire at the end of this year, unrelated to the big, beautiful bill. A bunch of extra tax credits that were passed during the Biden administration under the American Rescue Plan to both provide more aid and to deal with an original kind of little design flaw in Obamacare. So this is the percent of income that people have to pay for health care. This is the income level starting at the bottom, obviously, and going all the way up here. And under the ACA, there was this cliff where if you got above $60,000 a year of income for a single person, the amount you paid suddenly went up like that and then eventually declined. The provision that was put in during the Biden administration provided what are called enhanced subsidies and took your costs down to here. And so if this expires at the end of the year, as it is currently scheduled to do, for all these folks, the percent of their income that they're going to pay is going to go back to this pink line. And that's what's really at stake at the moment. And you can see that those enhanced tax credits were very, very popular, the number of people taking it went from 10 million all the way up here to 20 million as they came into effect. Most of the people who get it are people down here, which is 250% of the poverty line is about $40,000 a year. So these are people for whom buying insurance would be very, very costly. And so we were providing a wonderful benefit to them that is going to go away in the course of this year if there's not some agreement.
So then you're going to have fewer people on the insurance rolls. And Steve, what does that do to premiums ultimately? I'm hearing the concept of even premiums tripling.
Yeah, so fewer people on health insurance means that health insurance companies raise prices for everyone who's buying through these marketplaces that were created under the ACA or Obamacare, because fewer people, it just makes it more expensive for them. And so you had 312 insurers already file for their rates for next year. And they're assuming that these things expire. That's what they have to. That's the current law. And when you look at these are all the different ones, but the point of it is 18% proposed rate change, not just for the people that I was talking about before, but for everybody who buys their insurance through the Obamacare marketplace. And then if you want to take a look at what this means for a representative family, take a 55-year-old couple making $85,000 a year. Their insurance bill at the moment is $7,225, thanks to the subsidies that we talked about. The subsidies go away. Their bill goes to $20,792. But then you have what I talked about a minute ago, that premiums just go up in general because fewer people are on insurance. So the premiums actually go to $24,535. You tell me how a couple making $85,000 can afford to pay $24,000 for their insurance. Hence, you see all those people dropping off of the insurance rolls.
Mike?
Wow.
I have a question for you, Joe, as a former member of Congress. How do you, in good conscience, cast a vote knowingly to eliminate or reduce people's health insurance?
I don't know. And I mean, I'll give you a great example. When we first got up there, we had a 95 contract with America, and it was term limits, it was balanced budget, it was making Congress apply, it was tax cuts, it was regulatory cuts. And I voted for most of them, but one of them was cuts in Medicaid. And this was at the height of, like, the big end, the argument was that this is welfare this is healthcare welfare. And I just remember saying, and again, remember, we would go on to be the class that balanced the budget 40 years in a row, the only time it's happened in a century. And I said to my freshman brothers and sisters, I said, listen, if you're going to make the argument that we have deficits because the poor people are getting away with too much, like you live in another country than I do, and I would say to them, go to the hospital in your hometown at 11 o'clock at night and look at the single mom with 3 kids that are using the emergency room as their primary care facility, and then vote to cut against Medicaid. I couldn't do that in 95. I don't know how anybody did this in 2025. I really don't. Especially like these Republicans in swing states, in states that Biden won, and they're trying to justify it because, listen, they thought they were smart that by pushing past the election, the cuts, the midterms, the cuts. No, hospitals in their home districts have to start planning now. So what do? They shut down neonatal units. They shut down nursing homes. They shut down all of these services. There has been, we've been talking about it on the show for some time, an emergency in rural health care, a crisis for the past decade. This has expedited it in a way that again, I guess Republicans from rural America just didn't know how much their vote was going to savage health care. But this is one of those things where, do you really fear Donald Trump so much that you're going to vote against the interests of farmers and small business owners in your own district? In this case, they did.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, on that happy note, Morning Joe economic analyst and YouTube star
Yeah.
in a massive way. And I think we all are shocked. I still haven't figured it out. Lamir's doing something for the Atlantic on this. For some reason, he's really big in South Korea and Azerbaijan.
Okay.
Cross demographics.
Yeah.
Yeah, all across.
You see what they did, right? You see what the American people did that didn't want to watch no news, but you know they watch news because that's how they know if a storm coming. They lying. We know they watch it. They just didn't give a damn. They just didn't care. They were so prejudiced that they would starve. They would burn their crops in the field as long as they punish the black and brown people. That's where we at. You willing to pay 3 times as much for your insurance as long as you own the libs, which support the black and the brown people. They were willing to destroy their own life, their own family, because that's where the poor white people live. In Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Tennessee, Kentucky. All those prejudiced poor people, they sacrificed themselves for their God. They fell on their own sword because of the hate for the black and brown people, which is only going to start a civil war. That's what they did it for. They did it because they know when people ain't got no money and people ain't got no health care, it's going to be a whole bunch of crime in the street. Because a father, he'll beg, steal, kill, or borrow if their kid is sick. And he know that people voted to take away their health care. People voted to take away SNAP. And their kids is going to go hungry. A good father ain't going to let his kid go hungry. Taking away free lunch in school, knowing it probably ain't no food at home in the refrigerator. Knowing a kid can't learn when they hungry. Elderly people can't take care of themselves. The people going to turn on the Republicans. It's going to be a sad day when people run around talking about they loving Jesus, but they Jesus is fake Jesus. They Jesus is Donald Trump. That they got. They Jesus is Donald Trump. See, and Charlie Kirk. That's what they believe in. They don't believe in love. They don't believe in peace. They don't believe in helping your neighbor, helping a stranger, strengthening what's weak and building up what's torn down. They don't believe in none of that. All they believe in is somebody's trying to take something from them. And it's going to get them killed. That's what's going to get your children robbed and busted upside their head. You riding around paying $1,000 for a bottle of wine and my children going hungry. Just because I can't work or I can't find a job. Ain't no good parent going to stand for that. That's what you did, 77 million to America, when Kamala Harris tried to tell you. When they brought the Project 2025 to Kamala Harris convention and they read it off to you. And they told you what Donald Trump was going to do. And you sit there and lied on the Democrats and stabbing the Democrats in the back because you really prejudiced. You was willing to fall on the sword as long as you destroy the black and the brown. But that very sword that you fall on is going to be the sword of the black and the brown people. God not with you. God is with us.